Oscar Wilde once said, "Everything in moderation, including moderation." The middle ground fallacy. Is something black or white? Or is it grey? If some people think 2 plus 2 equals 4, but some other people think 2 plus 2 equals 5, should we take the middle ground, a compromise, and say 2 plus 2 equals 4.5? When I was working with RAF officers, one officer said, "A compromise is always a solution." I don't think so. "We should agree to differ." No, that's just shutting down discussion. One person's job on the line at an airfield, military airfield, was to call up and get some temperature, get some meteorological specifications, and one was the temperature. And the sergeant used to say to me, "What's the temperature going to be today?" And I would say, well, it's going to start off round about, this is the air temperature, he's maintaining aircraft, it's going to start off round about 5 or 6 degrees. By midday it will get to about 15 degrees. Later on in the day it will get to about 20 degrees. Maybe 20, 22. So, and he said, "But what's the temperature going to be?" So I said, "Okay, 11 degrees, which is a compromise halfway in between those figures." "Right, thanks." Off he went, which meant that the figure he was in working on was the only temperature it wasn't going to be. At any point during the day, it would be a different temperature from that. That's the mean, it's the compromise. Often, being in Britain is in the extreme western part of the European continent at a certain latitude, temperate. This means that weather systems are constantly changing, and they sweep through. Within 24 hours, everything will change from one thing to the next. We don't have a Mediterranean climate or an equatorial climate. So it's movement, an awful lot of movement. So therefore, it isn't uncommon for the wind direction to change 180 degrees. You can start off with a south-easterly or a southerly wind, and by the end of the day you could have the wind coming from the north. There's many other factors as well, but what this amounts to is, for a huge part of the day, you've got the wind coming from one direction, and for another part of the day, the wind is coming from the other direction, the opposite. So when someone asks you what's the wind going to be, if you give them, which they often ask for, is the average, or the average is the middle ground, and that's the only thing that doesn't apply, because that's the only direction the wind doesn't flow in. It's either one or other. So if you try to mean things out or average them, or take a middle ground, you can get yourself into a logical fallacy.